this message is one that's important to Kaylee and her family, but it's of very great importance to a generation of people who have been affected.
This message is one that is important to Kaylee and her family, but especially for others. That's what we just heard there. And this is really important because this is the response, the lawyer for a plaintiff known as Kaylee, who sued and won a landmark social media addiction case. Kaylee says Google's YouTube and Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram, intentionally got her hooked on their platforms, injured her mental health, and failed to warn her about the risk. On Tuesday, in a separate case in New Mexico, Meta was found guilty of failing to protect children from sexual exploitation online. Meta and Google both disagreed with the rulings and plan to appeal, but this could change the platforms and create more guardrails for kids. So here to break down the impact of these court decisions is Dr. Jada Jackson, a licensed mental health counselor and CEO of Think Well Plus Counseling and Wellness. Dr. Jackson, thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
We want to get right into it. These rulings are really, really important and could have big impacts. So the first question I have for you, can you talk to us about the shift, like when we see these rulings from social media being, a lifestyle choice to kind of a legitimate mental health risk?
Yes, we're no longer just talking about entertainment here. We're talking about exposure. And so social media has officially entered that category of a mental health risk factor, especially for children who have developing brains. And so just because it's normalized doesn't necessarily mean that it's neutral.
And you just mentioned, the impact on the brain. I want to get into that a little bit more. Can you talk about how specifically social media use impacts the brain, especially for kids and teens, and what is really happening neurologically when that social media use becomes excessive?
The biggest issue is the dopamine overloads, because social media floods the brain with dopamine, that feel-good chemical. And that's the problem. It means that the brain starts craving those really quick hits of pleasure, making it difficult to engage in real life. And then the second thing that happens is it rewires our attention and our focus. So it trains the brain for short bursts of stimulation. So now kids and teens, they struggle to focus and sit still and tolerate boredom, unfortunately. And finally, it heightens the emotional sensitivity. And that's where the brain becomes more reactive, more comparison, more rejection, sensitivity, and unfortunately, more anxiety.
There were so many things that came up in these cases, and one of them was this idea of the addictive design of these platforms. Can you talk about that from a psychological perspective and what it looks like and why it is so difficult for folks to disconnect?
Yeah, the platforms are built on what we call intermittent reinforcement. So you don't know when the reward is coming. So you keep checking, you keep searching, you keep seeking. And it's the same psychological mechanisms that are used in slot machines. And so that's why people don't just use social media. They get sucked into it. They get pulled into it.
What are some of the key warnings that social media use is having a negative impact, particularly, this question being for parents, for your kids and teens?
Mood changes. You want to look for increased anxiety, irritability, and sadness. Escapism. If they are using social media to avoid real life instead of engaging in real life. And then just disconnection. They're less present with family, friends, and what I believe, from a psychological perspective, they're also less engaged with themselves. So they're disconnected from self. And then there's the identity confusion. They don't know who they are offline because they're performing. It's that performative day-to-day engagement that they have online. And then finally, there's the addictive patterns. They maybe want to stop, but they can't. And that loss of control is probably one of the biggest red flags.
And my last question for you, all of this information is so important. We're seeing this increased accountability for tech companies, but there's still, of course, a responsibility that falls on individuals when we're talking about kids' parents. How can we help protect our children from mental health issues with social media, and where does that responsibility fall on folks who are using these platforms regularly?
Yeah, even with the accountability at the top, we still need the boundaries at the bottom. We still have to govern ourselves, and you have to manage your mind just like you would manage your diet and how you eat. Just because it's available doesn't mean it's healthy and unlimited amounts of consumption. So we really have to take the time for our children and for ourselves to curate what we consume, or it ultimately shapes how we think, how we feel, and what we do.
Dr. Jada Jackson, thank you for joining us. This topic is so important. I know this is the news of the day, but this is something that is always important, especially as we're raising kids and teens. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.